Austin here, All World Construction and Blue Pinnacle Plumbing. Today we're going to discuss 5 things that people should do to their home or to their rental property that they don't, that ends up screwing them hard. And as a professional who suggests it and then the customer doesn't do it, a lot of times those professionals will actually get amusement from the person not doing it because they know what will happen over time, and the customer ends up paying for it. Number 1, and yes, as usual, we're going to look at an airplane. Number 1, plumbing. A lot of the times people will invest a lot of money on interior design or other crap that's not needed, but then they don't upgrade their plumbing, like water heater or angle stops. And then something happens, it fails, it floods the house, and there is a huge insurance claim. And not only does it decommission the property for X amount of time, as far as they have to probably end up pay for the resident's rent if it's a rental, or they don't get enough money for the insurance from the insurance company that ends up having to reimburse them for the repairs because everything's skyrocketing. Insurance companies aren't paying out as much as the repair costs, and a lot of people will accept the insurance offer before, so you need to upgrade your plumbing. And the whole thing with the PEX, I don't believe it. I'm a believer that old school is better, the copper. All right, so plumbing, that's number 1. Number 2, balconies or wood rot. A lot of the times people will not upgrade their balcony, and the interior of it's going to be completely rotten. Termites are and they will eat basically the entire structure, and it'll be barely structurally sound. And then an increase in load will cause the deck to fail, especially in the southern states, like the southern portion of California, Arizona, Texas, Louisiana. Those are hot spots for termites. So a lot of times they'll do like a patch on it and then they'll paint it, but then they'll just deal with the ramifications. But the termites are still on the inside of it. You need to be able to treat the pests. A lot of times people will just take care of the exterior of their property, but the pests are definitely a major issue. It's like people would rather restucco the house and repaint the house. There we go, here's another one. And restucco the house before they take care of that critical issue of the bugs. Again, I had a discussion on Nextdoor. This is another thing, is they were complaining about roaches, and they hire pest control, but they're not dealing with the root cause of the problem. And roaches love to feed off little leaks in the crawl space or in the walls, and that turns into a nightmare. They lay eggs and then they multiply. So you have to make sure that you deal with bugs with the root cause. Pest control companies aren't going to fix a plumbing leak, aren't going to fix a sewage leak. They're not going to, in some cases they might pull out the fridge or the stove, but a lot of the times that is where the roaches are multiplying. And because over time you're cooking, all the grease, all the crap gets down in between the stove and the countertop, and people are sweeping and the little vacuum goes to the house and it flings things underneath the fridge, and that causes a huge issue. So rot, bugs, roaches is something that people just kind of mask, and they hire a pest control company that is not qualified to actually fix the issue at the root cause. Sealing, S-E-A-L, sealing the exterior. They're not using a high strength caulking, which is 10 to 14 bucks per caulking tube. And sealing the exterior of their property is crucial if you want to make sure that those bugs don't get in. And it also, if you go along the baseboard, you'll notice that there's cracks along there, and a lot of the times you'll see a paint job and I'll notice cracks where things join, or old caulking delaminates from where it was put in because they used a cheap painter grade caulking. So there's a caulking that is called Sikaflex 1A, and if you install that, it's a high grade polyurethane that'll last 60 plus years, and it is exterior rated. So that's number 3, something that people should be doing more and taking the time, but they're not doing. Painting, they're hiring cheap painters because a nice paint job costs a lot of money. Let's say, for example, you just want to paint the ceiling. Another conversation had on Nextdoor. They're complaining about how expensive the paint jobs are. Well, you have to move all the furniture or put it in the front. You got to cover it. If you don't want it to, you want the baseboards in the crown to be a different color, you need to go around on your hands and knees and put tape perfectly. And where you put the tape is exactly where your finish line is going to be. And so that's very time consuming. You have the rosin paper so that paint doesn't soak through. Tarps are not cheap. And have you ever taken a look at how expensive a sprayer is? So there's a lot of expenses that people don't realize and how time consuming until they actually try to paint. How many times have I given an interior paint that's easily 4 digits, and then I go back to the house for a service call later, a few months later, and they went with another painter, or they decided to paint it themselves, and it's a disaster. The lines aren't straight. You can see runs. You can tell that the paint sweated. They painted the baseboards the same color as the crown. The baseboard and the crown the same color as the wall. And what ends up happening is they get a lot less for rent. As a lot of you may know, how nice the paint job is directly correlated to how much the house is going to sell for or how much rent they're going to get. So going with a cheap paint job is probably going to be one of the most common worst things that people do. And if you try to paint, you'll realize that it takes a lot of work to do prep. If you're spraying, you need to make sure you cover everything. You need to make sure you cover everything that you don't want to get oversprayed, which means buying a lot of plastic, and then making sure that after you tape, that you caulk where the tape ends, like in a corner of a casing. You tape and then you caulk it so that when you peel the tape after you paint, that there's a perfectly straight line. A lot of people won't caulk, and when they peel the tape off after they paint, you'll see that the paint kind of ran underneath the tape a little bit, because even no matter how hard you press it, there's a little bit of paint that goes underneath the tape. And when you do that, when you get real close, you could tell that it's not a perfectly straight line, and that looks like crap. And that significantly decreases the value of the property and the rent. All right, so to recap before we move on, we have the ceiling, we have the plumbing, we have the paint. Let's see here. We have number 4. Okay, HVAC. So in a lot of homes, if you ever gotten an estimate on the HVAC system, you're going to realize that HVAC is not cheap. If you've ever had an HVAC technician come to diagnose and they give you a quote, you're going to see how expensive it is. And not because it's the hardest job to physically do, because it takes specialized knowledge. And that was one of the last trades that I learned. And I'm still learning HVAC and geeking out on it. But diagnosing, let's say, a compressor because the capacitor went bad. And you're dealing with a capacitor that can really cause you to have a heart attack if you touch the wrong wires together. So it's important to know what you're doing. And so what people will do is they will invest their capital into crap things that they think will give more value, and they don't actually take care of, like the ceiling, that will increase the efficiency for when they install an HVAC unit, But then a lot of people will leave the super old AC unit in the building, or the old furnace there that's ancient, and then they're going to try to sell it or rent it out. It's like one of the last things that, you know, investors or homeowners are going to invest in, because they don't think that there's going to be a good return on investment. But I promise you, you should do the HVAC or heater system in addition to whatever else you're doing, and don't skimp out on that. That's going to be super important. All right, lastly, something that should be done. Woo! Line them up. A rocket racer. Sounds like a pissed off bumblebee is what it sounds to me. But there you have it. We'll just leave it at that. If there's any other things that should be done to properties that investors and homeowners don't do, that would make a big difference in the habitability of the property, leave it down below. You know, roofing is another one of those, and I could go on. But anyways, thanks for your time. What's up? The Rock 69. What's up, brother? Anyways, hope you have a good day, and talk to you later. Bye.